Virginia Board of Education member. It is my pleasure to host our meeting this morning. I welcome each of you to the first virtual Bristol, Virginia Public Education Roundtable. Thank you for serving as a panelist and sharing your thoughts and opinions with us. Today's discussion will focus on ensuring an equitable world-class education for every child in Virginia. I'm especially honored to have a special guest with us today, former Governor of Virginia and gubernatorial candidate, Mr. Terry McAuliffe, who has recently announced his candidacy for Governor of Virginia. As Governor of Virginia, Terry McAuliffe proved to be a champion for Virginia's K-12 education system, our students, and our teachers. He was able to secure more than $1 billion in funding to invest in Virginia's children. For example, Governor McAuliffe expanded access to early childhood education for thousands of our little ones across the state. He championed the redesign of high school experiences for high school students. Governor McAuliffe eliminated 5 standards of learning assessments. He made room for meaningful career exploration and created opportunities for work-based learning opportunities. Governor McAuliffe continues to be an advocate for ending childhood hunger across the Commonwealth and the nation. I'm excited to learn more details about his plan to drive Virginia's K-12 recovery from this pandemic and reinvent our education system. But first, before we start, I met Governor and Mrs. McAuliffe after speaking with members of the Senate Health and Education Committee. This was around the time of his horse riding accident, and Governor McAuliffe, I hate to bring up bad memories. I'm sure he was in quite a bit of pain during this meeting, but he handled it very well. He and Mrs. McAuliffe took time out of their busy day to meet with me and share their vision on how they could end childhood hunger in Virginia. That meeting with McAuliffe's forever changed my path as an educator. As a father of 5, Governor McAuliffe understood what children need to thrive in our most challenged school environments. He has always been an advocate for ending childhood hunger in Virginia and across the nation. And during his first administration, he formed the Commonwealth Council for Bridging the Nutritional Divide, which resulted in numerous programs providing students with alternative breakfast models, such as breakfast on the go, no-cost breakfast, no-cost lunch, and third meal options, weekend snack packs, and summer EBT cards to support proper nutrition while kids were away from school. It was through the support of the McAuliffes that Highland View Elementary School became involved with the 365 grant and the Share Our Strengths campaign to end childhood hunger, No Kid Hungry. Our students now have 3 no-cost meals, and we have an alternative breakfast model, and all students receive breakfast when they enter our school, no matter what time of the day. Our school was featured in a documentary and highlighted on the Today Show due to the success of our programs, all thanks to Governor McAuliffe and his initiatives to support our children in the challenged school environment. Thank you, Governor McAuliffe, for supporting our most vulnerable populations of children across the Commonwealth. Thank you for putting us first. Thank you for putting our students first. And thank you for supporting our teachers. So, ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure to present to you former governor and gubernatorial candidate, Mr. Terry McAuliffe.
Well, good morning, everybody. What an honor to be with you. We were supposed to be in person, obviously, in Bristol today, but under the new COVID restrictions, obviously, we can't do it, so we're doing it virtually. I want to thank you, first of all, Pam. You have been such a superstar, and I remember being on the stage where Share Our Strength, No Kid Hungry, gave you the award for the work that you'd actually done in Bristol. And, you know, I was very proud of our effort, working with, obviously, my wife, Dorothy, and others. And, you know, we ended up providing 13 million more meals per year for our children in Virginia. I always used to say, our children are hungry to learn. You can't learn if you're just plain hungry. And Pam, you were a real superstar. And you know, I got elected as the chairman of the National Governors Association, and I put Dorothy in charge of the nutrition program. And Virginia became the model for the United States of America, which I'm really, really very proud of. But you know, if it wasn't for folks like you, Pam, none of this would have happened. I mean, I can come up with big, bold ideas, but you actually need people to get behind it and get it done. And we are a better Commonwealth today because you and so many others. And I do remember that meeting. I had been thrown off a horse in Africa I had 7 shattered ribs and a punctured lung that I lived with for 3 weeks. Didn't tell anybody. I just thought, I had a couple cracked ribs, but needless to say, it all worked out and I'm still here. So, but an honor to be with everybody today. I thank you for taking time out of your busy schedules to be with us. As Pam mentioned, I announced for governor the other day, I've made the key cornerstone, the kickoff of my campaign around education. The last time I ran, I always talked about building that new Virginia economy to make sure we had the best economy. I inherited a record deficit when I walked into office, left a record surplus 4 years later, 200,000 new jobs, 20 billion new capital. Why? It's because of the investments we made in education. And I went around the globe recruiting companies to come back. They knew that if we were investing in education, we had a great workforce, thereby they'll invest millions to build and come to Virginia because they'll have workers for many years. So for me, when I talk about education, I mean, I'm known as the jobs governor and all that. It goes back to education always. And you got to make sure you have the teachers, you have the talent pipeline, our children are being fed. And so I called for a big, bold plan, the biggest in Virginia history. In order, we have to deal with COVID and we have to build what I call the post-COVID economy. And it's going to be hard. Last time I took office, I had the Great Recession and sequestration to deal with. Now it's building that new economy on a post-COVID economy. I think it will give us a tremendous opportunity to do things differently and to build back better, as Joe Biden likes to say. And that's making sure that all of our schools, that we eliminate the inequities, the issues we have on rural schools, socioeconomic, racial. I would like to see Virginia become the model. So I call for a $2 billion investment per year in education. Number one, hitting teacher pay. It is embarrassing that the Commonwealth of Virginia, the 10th wealthiest state in the United States of America, we are 50th out of 50. Teacher pay compared to average pay. We are dead last in America, dead last. So we need to raise our teacher pay. So I promise for the first time in Virginia history, we will move our teachers above the national average. We have never done that before. You could go to Maryland today or Delaware or Pennsylvania. At a minimum, you get 10,000 more and most likely $20,000 more as a teacher in those 3 neighboring states. We got to fix that. I talk about the 40,000 children at risk, 3 and 4 year olds. We need to make sure that every single one of those 3 and 4 year old children at risk go and get a pre-K education. So they're ready to go. They're ready to absorb learning so that they can get the best out of their education. I talk about broadband access, which I want to hear about obviously in Bristol. We have so many of our counties in the rural areas in Virginia that don't have access. Here in COVID, when you have online learning and so forth, how do we expect our children to learn if they can't even access to get on the pipe in order for broadband access to be so that they can keep up with their classes, they don't fall behind. So I call for a $75 million investment a year. Every single student in Virginia gets online. I talk about the shortage of teachers. We have 1,000 teacher shortage today in Virginia. So if you're willing to go in one of our high demand subject areas, if you're willing to go study and then commit to giving us 5 years to come back and teach in our schools, we will pay for your college education at any of our public universities or colleges or any of our HBCUs. So I've come out with a big, bold plan. We've got to build Virginia. We've got to deal with the inequities that we have in schools. And this plan will do it. But I wanted to do this roundtable with everybody. You're in Bristol. You deal with these issues every single day. And I'd really like to hear from you of how we make it the best education system in the country. So thank you.
Thank you, Governor.
You bet.
I look forward to hearing more of those details. And you're right, teacher attrition is something that we all need to be concerned about.
Right.
Thank you for those statements. So first up, we have a parent and a teacher representing Highland View and Bristol Public Schools, Miss Aley Kistner. Aley?
Hello. Thank you so much for this opportunity. This is such a blessing, something that I'm not going to take for granted. It's not often that I receive an opportunity such as this. So I have quite a bit to say. I promise I will talk quickly. So I'm wearing two hats today. I'm wearing a parent hat and I'm wearing a teacher hat. My son attends Highland View. He is in the third grade. He attended kindergarten, first, second, and now he's in third. So, but not only do I act as his parent, but I act as one of Solomon's parents. He will forever, no matter how big he gets, he will still be one of my babies. So I am representing not only myself as a parent, but all the other parents and guardians, and as we call them in kindergarten, we call them our grown-ups. So something that I would really like to commend you on is your plan for that teacher pay that you were saying. I actually live in Tennessee. So I live in Bristol, Tennessee, and I'm a 15-year teacher here in Bristol, Virginia Public Schools. I wouldn't leave for anything, and just to prove that I could teach in Bristol, Tennessee and make that $10,000 more a year and not pay Virginia state tax. So, but my loyalty with this division is very deep. I'm not going anywhere. But that's not the same. So like you were saying, to reiterate, retaining those teachers, the quality teachers, keeping them here. That's something that's very important. And I'm so glad that's on your radar.
Okay. So you literally, Aley, you literally could just go 3 or 4 miles.
Yeah, from my house. Yeah.
And get $10,000 more a year.
Absolutely.
Boy.
Absolutely. And not pay Virginia's tax.
Yeah. Yeah.
Incredible. But like I said, my loyalty here.
Good for you.
I'm not going anywhere. I mean, well, unless Pam like tells me to leave, but I hope she doesn't. So anyway, but now wearing my teacher hat, I really, this COVID has kind of like highlighted just the emotional distress that our students are in. We always knew that the students from rural Virginia and who come from unfortunate circumstances, they have those adverse childhood experiences. And so I think for us to focus on their emotional and their mental health, because I teach kindergarten, 15 years in kindergarten, and they don't know how to process their emotions and their feelings, and they're coming from homes where they're not supported in that way, and their families and their family members do not know how to help them through that. So I think if we could really focus on their emotional and mental health, instead of expecting them to learn how to read and write when they're in such an emotional distress, I can't do my job because those necessary needs aren't met. I would love to see that some academic shift take place to make sure that our students are career ready. Not all of our students are going to college. That's not their path. So it would be just absolutely amazing. It would be such a blessing if we could prepare them for a career.
Yep.
A lot of our families and a lot of our children come from homes where, unfortunately, they don't have very many family members who are in the workforce. So they're not aware of very many job opportunities and career paths. So if we could give them, like what you were explaining earlier about the virtual internships, that sounds like an absolute dream, because we don't have those opportunities, a lot of those opportunities here in Bristol. Yeah. So that is an absolute, just like a gift to hear that's in your wheelhouse. Yeah. So because in Bristol, we don't, we kind of rely on our career ready people here in Bristol. So if we could get them career ready, and I think that would also help break the cycle, so to speak. So that's something that I would very much love to see our students know what their opportunities are. And know, because we teach them what they're valued. We teach them they're valuable, they're capable. So let's give them some opportunities to see what really sparks them and motivates them. So I'd like to be able to support them in that way. And one more thing, and I'll stop. Mm-hmm. Okay, I told you I'd talk really fast. I would really love to see us be able to offer medical, dental, and vision opportunities here in-house. Unfortunately, a lot of our families don't have the transportation to get their child to the doctor, or they don't even have a family doctor. And so just this week, literally this week, we, the other kindergarten teacher, she noticed that a child was struggling focusing in class. And she had made the recommendation for them to have a vision test and to have his vision screened. Turns out they have an astigmatism in both eyes, and that could be contributing to his lack of focus. So if we have those services here, it's going to streamline everything.
Did that
And-
student not had an eye test in a long time?
Well, and correct. And so when we do vision screenings here in kindergarten, third and fifth, and when we make those screenings and we see that that child needs a referral to a specialist or to a doctor, we send that home, that a notification to the parents, you need to take your child for a vision screening, and it's put in the hands of the parent. And not always do they follow up.
Yeah.
So if we have those services here, it's going to be streamlined where we'll just have to get parental consent and take care of that here in-house. So it'll be seamless, it will be fast. And it's really hard when you have a kindergartner that has more abscessed teeth than non. And it's very hard to teach a child who's in constant pain. And so if we have those services here, it will be convenient for our parents and our families. And it will also support their academic career. It will support their education.
Yep.
And so it's really hard for us to look at those SOLs and to teach to those standards when we have so many needs that are being unmet. So I think, I take the role of being their mama very seriously. So if we have those services here, I just think that we'll be able to cover so much more ground.
Let me ask you, of your students you're teaching, just general on an average, how many in those classrooms do you think would have an issue, a medical issue, dental issue, vision issue, percentage of your classes, do you think?
90%.
90?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Kistner.
Wow.
All right, next up we have Mrs. Sara Kate Tallman. Mrs. Tallman, what is something that Governor McAuliffe could do for you as an educator in the next administration of his office?
First of all, talking to teachers, and I appreciate you doing that with us today. You're really hearing from the people who are in the trenches. So I appreciate you listening to us. Something that would help is just taking care of our kids. So the things that Ms. Kistner were saying are absolutely true. We need our SOQs fully funded. We need those. All these people are truly needed for a quality of education. And as a music teacher, I would say paying special attention to the fine arts, which oftentimes are left out or pushed aside for other things, and the mental health needs of our students, which go hand in hand with fine arts. Ms. Kistner was saying she lives in Tennessee, so do I. And I am right down the road. I have a 3-year-old, but I see the dedication of my colleagues every day. And I want my son to come to a school that I will be here and that I know who has him, and I know the quality of education he is receiving in Virginia. And it's important to me to be a part of that quality of education that my son and the children of Bristol are receiving. I grew up in Bristol, Virginia, in Washington County, and have moved just across the line. But I do appreciate all the work that our teachers are doing. Our children are in a place of trauma right now, and so are our teachers, and so are their parents. When we talk about our parents and having trouble meeting the needs of our students, it's not because they don't care. It's not because they aren't trying. They're trying, but it's difficult to get your child where they need to be when you don't have a car, or you've just lost your job, or you're caring for someone who has COVID, or you're in your home for 2 weeks and you just can't go. So those sorts of things are kind of compounding the issues that we already have. I had a child say to me yesterday in class, Ms. Tallman, I'm just not good enough anywhere. And he's in 5th grade. Our kids shouldn't feel that way, but they do. And so when they feel I'm not good enough anywhere, and we're saying, well, we got to get this done. That's not doing our child justice. That's not raising a whole child. That's not providing a well-rounded education. So here in Bristol, what we are doing is we are working every day to ensure that our students' needs are met, their basic needs are met. And your programs fighting food insecurity have helped so many of our children. And that is just one thing that we can take off our plate, so to speak, and worry about taking care of our children. And we appreciate you doing that. Fine arts is a great way to alleviate some of the things that are going on with their children. Horatio Spafford, who wrote the lyrics to It Is Well With My Soul, had great tragedy in his life, great trauma. He lost 5 children and wrote It Is Well With My Soul. Our high school band students played that song, sight read it a couple weeks ago. And afterwards, the kids were saying, I feel so much better. I feel relieved. I had a student say to me once, music lets my heart spread out. These are the things that our children need right now. And thankfully, we have teachers in Virginia who are providing that experience for our children. So we appreciate your efforts with the competitive teacher pay as well. We will do the work. We're not afraid of the work. We just need the support.
Thank you, Sarah, for that. First thing you mentioned, fund the SOQs. So my $2 billion, $1 billion of the cost per year is to fully fund the SOQs. It doesn't do any good if you have these SOQs and you're not funding them. So I agree with you 100% on that and appreciate it. And I do talk a lot about, as you mentioned, the wraparound services. We have to take care of the child both inside and outside the classroom because people don't have transportation, other issues, the health cares that Aley had mentioned. So thank you.
All right, thank you, Mrs. Tallman. Next up, Governor McAuliffe, we have Jamie Moser, who is the Virginia Middle School counselor and mental health advisor for a very specific group of at-need children. Ms. Moser?
Hi, thank you, Governor McAuliffe. And I would echo those thoughts. Thank you again for getting us all together and coming to hear, thoughts from the field. We certainly appreciate that, especially as Southwest Virginia. We have some unique challenges here in our region and of course some common challenges that everyone faces. I would just like to echo, of course, the need for a mental health lens once we come back post-COVID and currently as well. As Ms. Tallman was saying, I had a student tell me I was pulling, I have weekly Zoom meetings with our virtual kids every week. And I was asking last week when I met with the middle school kids, what do you think the biggest challenge has been? And what's the thing that you've seen that you think will be the hardest once things get back to quote unquote normal? And the response that I got from almost all of them was that they are feeling anxiety. Of course, they're feeling inferior. I have a student, one of the students who's making straight A's, just like she did when we were in person. She said, yeah, I'm getting it, but I'm missing her quote was the real stuff. Like, I feel like I'm missing the projects and the things that connect everything together and the things that make learning fun. And I think I'm getting the facts, but I'm still afraid that I'm going to be inferior. The word she used was inferior once we're back to in person. And that's a student who's still making straight A's.
And why do you think she feels that way?
Why do I think she feels that way? I think there's this sense that we're sort of getting the facts, but we're not getting, it's not sinking in all the way that, I can recite this back to you like a multiple choice test, but I'm not getting the in-depth, connections, the practical connections. Yeah. That because a lot of our students, like one of the things that I think, and one of the things you could do for our students, not me per se, but really is fund school counselors at least the ASCA ratios, the 1 to 250, because we are trained in, of course, counseling techniques in child and adolescent development, but we also, and we address personal, social, academic, and the career domains within our role. And so our very role is to help students put it all together and see how it all connects and see how it's going to be personally meaningful to them. And it's true, I really applaud your efforts toward the virtual internships, because that is something that we definitely see here. One of the things that I've been doing for years as a school counselor is a really kind of blowout career day. Because my guiding principle always was, if you can't see it, you can't be it. And so if you happen to come from a place where there's a little less to see, or it's more circumscribed, then that can be so much more of a hindrance than even you realize in the moment. You don't even realize, you don't even know you can dream. And I've had lots of students that they think that's other, that, you know, that other people have that experience, but it's not possible for them. And that's one of the amazing things about public education, and one of the things that you were aligned in supporting public education, because you get that that's not the case, you know, that we all can be whatever we want to be. We just need the equity and opportunity. So thank you.
And listen, this internship is not a difficult thing to do. The first thing is we got to get the broadband access, because it does not work if we don't have the piping capacity to do what we need to do to access the web. But, you know, I remember one of my greatest moments as governor, we had our new workforce development, first in the nation credential. You know, if you went and got one of our credentials, we'll pay 2/3 of the cost. And 24 students went through the course in Blackstone, and none of them are going to go to college, had no interest, but 11-week training course. When they finished that, every single one of them had a job. Starting pay was $70,000. Walking off the stage that day. We can do this all over Virginia. But you're right. I mean, Jamie, if they don't know about it, we need to do a better job making sure everybody understands the potential opportunities. I had 48,000 cyber jobs open when I walked out the door. We made Virginia #1 state for cyber. The starting pay was $88,000, and you don't need a college degree for that. I mean, to me, this is the secret sauce of what we need to be doing.
Well, school counselors can help you with that, sir.
You bet. Thank you. You bet. I agree. It's a partnership.
Thank you, Mrs. Moser. Next up, Governor
And if you
McAuliffe,
don't
we
go
have
in my $1 billion funding, I call for more counselors on the funding for ISOQs, Jamie. So you'd be happy to know that.
I am. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jamie. All right, next up, Governor McAuliffe, we have Rebecca Meadows, a Virginia high school special education teacher. Mrs. Meadows, what can Governor McAuliffe do for you in his next administration?
First of all, good morning. It's still morning. And thank you so very much for letting me speak and represent special education students in this area. I have noticed that, yes, we're going to provide wonderful things for all students, but how often, though, do our special education students get left out? I mean, even though we have all these programs, they really don't trickle down to our classrooms. I've been a special education teacher for 33 years. It's a long time. And unfortunately, I can't see where things have really changed since the day I first began in an elementary school in West Virginia. I've been in Virginia for 13 years at the middle school and high school, and I love my job. I'm still here because I love the students, and I want to make a change for them. And hopefully this is one way that I can do it. You speak about the virtual opportunities for them to line up with, you know, the businesses in Hampton or Norfolk. We have a huge special education population here in Southwest Virginia. And those students, some of them, a lot, they aren't even able to read and write. So the virtual opportunities are not going to be capable or optional for them. And what we need are technical and vocational programs to offer our students to prepare them for service jobs in our own areas, not online, not somewhere else in the state, but for here in Bristol, in Tazewell, in Giles County, wherever it is down here. We need jobs. We need these students to be prepared, and we can do that in our local schools if we have the money, the funding, the personnel to offer them more classes, to offer them these vocational programs that they need, and also the mentorships and the apprenticeships that they can work at their own levels and learn a skill. We can take them out while they're in the 11th and 12th grades and teach them a skill, and then also provide support after they graduate. I'm speaking about students who do not receive standard diplomas. They receive an applied studies diploma. And this changed, a couple of years ago. The majority of our SPED students that are in resource classes don't take SOLs, and they repeat the same classes over several times. And this is because we don't have the money, the funds, the personnel to offer them more than that, and they deserve it. Our numbers grow almost on a weekly basis because being on the border of Tennessee, we get a lot of transfer students from Tennessee. They come in here from Miami, from Chicago, New York. Our numbers are growing, and we need to meet their needs, not only the needs of our general ed students, but these special ed students. I mean, they're precious. And to go back to what Ms. Kistner said about the medical services, I have a young lady in the 11th grade who had a wisdom tooth coming in, and the pain was unreal. She didn't know how to deal with it. She always wanted to go to the nurse to get, the oral medication to make the pain go away. And all we can do is refer. And if we really knew what was wrong with these students, we could help them. There's a lot of turmoil in their families. When I've been online with them, there's been screaming in the background. We have no idea what their lives are like. And if we can change one life, that's what I was always taught. If we can change one life, we have done so much. And I'm proud to say that I have changed lives and I have seen progress. And with your help, we can do even more. And with this platform, I thank you so very much. And I want special ed to be in the forefront. I want you to really go all out for us and add us to all of the programs.
Count on it. I plan it. Well, thank you for what you do, Rebecca, every day. I know the challenges that you face. Have you seen a significant difference since Medicaid expansion is now available for many families?
A lot of our students do receive the Medicaid. Usually in our school, unless they receive medications directly, from our nurse there, we don't charge or anything for that.
Yeah.
But a lot of the parents, as been previously said, they don't have transportation.
Yeah.
We'll tell the students, would you please tell your mom you need to go to the doctor, and they never make it. And that's the sad part. They don't end up going to the doctor. And then some of them don't even have services. They don't have insurance to afford the medications. So.
Thank you. In 33 years of doing this, thank you.
You're welcome.
Can I piggyback off of something that Rebecca just mentioned?
Sure, please.
A lot of our families, like we mentioned, lack the transportation. But in one instance, I had a student who needed teeth removed, and we scheduled the appointments for them. All they had to do was take their child there. And it just, after 3 missed appointments, we were finally given permission to take the child. And, if we had those services here, a counselor could go with them to the appointment or to the procedure. The teacher, oh my goodness, I would probably try to, make sure that I was the one there with them to have those services done. So there's just even the emotional support that we could provide if we had those services here. It would be streamlined. It would be emotionally supported. So it would just really be successful in so many different ways. I'm sorry.
You're very effectively, Aley, making your point on this.
Thank you. All right, Governor McAuliffe, this young man is the epitome of perfection in all of our eyes because he represents our best efforts in the city of Bristol. This is Solomon McKinley. So Solomon, please take this opportunity to tell Governor McAuliffe what he can do for you in his next administration.
First off, thank you, Governor McAuliffe, for allowing me to speak with you. It's not every day that a high school student gets to speak with someone of your stature. One thing you can do for me is provide equal access for every student to have a chance at learning, a successful chance of learning. During COVID and the pandemic, switching to remote learning has definitely it's been tough, but some students, they don't even have internet access at home. Like you said, I like the plan to get internet access for every student, because in the Teams meeting, some students, they couldn't even join, or their internet access would be too weak to even stay in the call, and they would drop out of the call and they would be missing out on information or education. And
So what
also,
do your buddies do, Solomon, when that happens?
can you repeat the question?
What do your buddies do when that happens? I mean, so they just don't get online, or they go to a buddy's house, or what do?
Most of them, they just, I guess they don't even try to get back on.
Can't
Like,
get on it.
they can't do anything about it.
Yeah. Got it. Okay.
And also, as Ms. Kistner was saying about and as you were saying about the internships with businesses and stuff, I like that idea, because a lot of students, once they graduate high school, some of them, they don't know what they're going to do, and college isn't for everyone. And giving students chances to see businesses and jobs they can go into while in high school would better prepare them for the real world. And as our world is evolving and as technology is evolving with it, I feel like it's very important that every student has internet access. And
Solomon, what do you want to do? Do you know yet?
Yes, I want to go into the field of cybersecurity.
Oh my God, music to my ears. That is, you couldn't have said anything better for me, because, when I became governor, I said we're going to rebuild the economy. We made Virginia the #1 state for cyber companies. We now have so many open cyber jobs, and we've got to do a better job in our schools. So that, let me just ask you, Solomon, why did you get excited about cyber? How'd you
Actually,
know about it?
I'm taking a class this semester actually with Mr. Hurd. It's called Cybersecurity Fundamentals. And I think it's really cool, like with computers and everything and how to program. I'm really interested in it.
You got a great future ahead of you. I mean, such a demand.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
So if you're sitting in my chair as governor, knowing all the experiences you've had, Solomon, and you had that pen in front of you, could do whatever you wanted with that executive order, what's the one thing you'd do?
The one thing I would do, I think I would try to change the school's curriculum and stray away from SOL testing and more to career-based learning, getting involved in careers.
Good answer. Maybe you should run for governor. But no, you talk about, and I dealt with this when I came in the first time. I mean, we were so much testing going on. Teachers were, it's not their fault. They were teaching to test. Students were learning to memorize. You want to see cognitive thought process, critical reasoning. I call it street smarts. I mean, that light bulb goes off. So that's why we had just way too many tests. We got rid of 5 SOLs. And, it's a more holistic approach about, I've owned a whole bunch of businesses. I started my first one, Solomon, when I was 14. I used to own a big home building company and built thousands of homes. And, if I had a problem, building a home, which has a lot of pieces going into it, I really didn't care what that person working for me got on an SOL or an SAT. Could they figure the problem out and solve it? And we've got to get our education system more attuned to what we need to do. And too many people, and many who go to college, we are not teaching what we need to be teaching to give the skills to match the jobs that exist today, putting that connective tissue together. And so, I'm about shaking it up, big, bold, out of the box thinking. This education system was built for the Industrial Revolution, not the 21st century economy. And we got to think big.
Sir.
Okay.
Thank you, Solomon. All right, Governor McAuliffe, we might have a few minutes left for you to ask any questions. Jake, I don't know how we're doing for time, but do you have any further questions you'd like to ask everyone?
What I'd love to do a little bit quickly, if everybody now, we're in this COVID environment. I get the broadband piece. Are there other things that really have affected before education now with COVID going on? How do we actually go forward? And suggestions what COVID sort of has highlighted and the issues around COVID. And the other thing, Pam, and I don't know how it relates in Bedford, but I saw 60 Minutes the other night, and they talked about the number of missing children in our education system because of COVID. And we're talking thousands and thousands of children who've just disappeared. They're not coming to school. They're not online. and they're just out. I mean, are you experiencing that with students just off the grid?
Yes, sir, we are experiencing that. We had one child that disappeared off the grid in March, and we could not get any communication whatsoever from the family. The family blocked our calls. We called extended relatives. We did everything within our power, knocked on doors, did welfare checks with the police department. We have numerous families that are putting up blocks to keep us from getting to them. But then there are families that have left the area and we don't know where they've went to, or where they've gone, because we don't even have a registration in the next school system.
Wow.
And so we are exhausting all efforts through the police, through DSS, social services. We've hired new personnel in the division to knock on doors, to visit. I go to homes. The teachers are going to homes. Our counselors are going to homes. Our community agencies are going to homes, and it's very frightening.
Wow.
Yes, sir, we see that. Something that post-COVID that I would like for us to think about, and something that you could do for us, is the early childhood education. I know you're a huge advocate for getting our smaller ones into the buildings earlier. And so bringing the pre-K under the umbrella of the Department of Education is a huge project. And we appreciate all efforts in that direction, but we're very concerned about investing in intervention and remediation in our primary grades so that we can put those dollars to work where we feel like they do the most benefit for the children, and vertically from the pre-K on up. Because if we can meet those needs at an earlier age, we won't need to meet those needs at a greater magnitude when they're older. So post-COVID, smaller classroom sizes, even below the recommended K through 3 recommendation for our school, that recommendation is 18. We're seeing a huge increase in effort, attitude, and attendance because our classroom sizes are much smaller right now. Our families are getting a lot of support from the teachers. Communication is better. So smaller classroom sizes post-COVID, more early childhood educators post-COVID. But that also brings up the conundrum, sir, that with this added support, our facilities are not capable of handling all of that support because we're in buildings that are very old. So across the state of Virginia, we're seeing schools that have dilapidated facilities, and the divisions are doing what they possibly can to provide for those services. But we need more funds directed toward updating our facilities across the board, east to west, north to south in the state of Virginia.
You're right. And all very important points. And as I say, because of COVID, and I've talked to I keep calling him Vice President, President-elect Biden a bunch on these issues. And he's looking at coming out with a $2 trillion infrastructure bill in the first 100 days, which would be very helpful to us, a federal infrastructure. But how do we build back an economy that is really more inclusive and more equitable? Because for 40, 50 years, the economy hasn't worked for so many families, many of the families that you are dealing with today. So really rebuilding. And my goal is to put Virginia at the front. And, you know, when I came out with my plan, it's the same stuff I always heard. Oh, it's too big. This is not how we do it in Virginia. I mean, the same old incrementalist crowd, you know. But they said that to me the first time around, and I leaned in and got the $1 billion and first state to end veteran homelessness. I restored more felon rights than any governor in American history. And, you know, Republicans sued me for contempt. None of that bothers me. I'm about getting out of bed, thinking big, acting bold. Don't tell me we can't do something. So, you know, this is the stuff that actually really fires me up. And I think we have a huge opportunity. And I do want to thank all of you for what you listen to these stories and what you have all done. And Solomon, I'm really counting on you to be the cyber king here in the Commonwealth of Virginia and take it to the next level. But all of you who have spoken here, you've put up under very difficult circumstances. And the idea is you could go 2-3 miles and get $10,000 more, but you don't do that because you love Pam and you love the school district. I want to just say thank you. It shouldn't be this hard. But the final thing, if you say, oh, how are you going to pay for all this? And I know we have a lot of press on this call, and it's a rightful, legitimate question. I think any politician who puts plans out has to explain how you're going to pay for them. And obviously, we're going to have new gaming revenue, and we're going to obviously have the legalization of marijuana revenue that we'll have. We got to bring big inequities. We got to solve those as it relates to that issue. But, you know, we're going to have $140 billion biennium budget here. Don't tell me we can't carve up $2 billion a year to do what we need to do. We can do this. And the final point on this is, I view this as something that actually saves us money. If we invest in at-risk 3 and 4-year-olds, as you were just mentioning, Pam, it saves us a tremendous amount of money down the road. The learning situation is much better. But if we invest in education, businesses will want to move to Virginia. As you all know, I recruited 1,100 companies to come to Virginia, the most in the history of our state. I went all over the world, 35 trade missions to 5 continents. I was successful because I could convince them we are making the investment in education, which means you will have a workforce, thereby come invest in us. As I said in the beginning, I wrote the bid for Amazon to come to Virginia. I remember recruiting Nestle to come out of LA. Why? Education. So we got to look at it differently. We put more money in education, it will be a generational surplus for decades to come. But we've got to do it now. COVID gives us this opportunity to think differently.
Governor, thank you so much. And Pam and everyone in Bristol, this was an incredibly moving conversation, I think, for everyone listening. So Governor, I think you just might want to give some closing sign-off remarks, and then you got more education stuff to do. It's all education all the time.
Yep, up on my site, look at that. But honestly, to all of you here, I mean, Pam, thank you. We've had a great working relationship. I think of the children, of 13 million more meals are being served, and Aley, and to Sara and Jamie and Rebecca and Solomon. I just want to thank all of you. You've got a lot going in your lives. But if you know anything about me, I'm not into this incrementalist crowd. I like to take big, bold actions. I think big, I act big. You've given me a lot of great input, and we are going to shake it up. And what you have all said today, it does get me fired up, and you give me tremendous inspiration. I'm going to fight for you. I promise you.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Governor McAuliffe.
Thanks, Pam. Bye-bye. See you soon.